Welcome very much, everyone, to session 2A. Can you observe the future in your hands? Yes, Tactile Profile for Acquired Deafblindness, a uniquely designed observatory instrument. So my name is Saskia Dame, and it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Femke Krijger is a woman with lived experience, Usher syndrome, balancing her sensory loss with the newfound sensory potential in her work as a holistic therapist and researcher on sensory processing. She has written a book about her personal sensory journey, The Balancing Artist. She has a special interest in the supportive potential of newest technological knowledge and applications, and is connected to research projects on this field. As co-chair of the EDBN network, she is focusing on strengthening intercultural and international connections. The common thread in her work is exploring new ground by challenging and connecting different perspectives and expertise to create the best opportunities for people with acquired deafblindness. The second speaker is Dr. Ton Roelofs, a medical specialist in clinical physics at Royal Dutch Physio. He studied at Nijmegen University, the Netherlands, and did his PhD in psychophysics at the Institute for Perception Research and the Technical University in Eindhoven. He researched neural networks of the brain at the University Medical Center in Amsterdam and did a postdoc on breast cancer research at the Radboud University Medical Center in Nijmegen. He worked as a department manager at the Swedish company Ericsson and followed a postgraduate training program in perception and technology. He is also specialized in and registered as a clinical physicist. Ton has extensive experience with scientific research in both the visual and the auditory field, and as a rehabilitation specialist. He is currently chairman of the Deafblindness Expert Group of Royal Dutch Physio and is working for the Expertise Center for Deafblindness of Physio-Intensive Rehabilitation. He is also the representative from Kennis Overzien within the board of DBI. He is a project leader and co-promoter of a number of projects mainly focused on deafblindness. And then Dr. Ans Withage. She has years of experience as a special educationalist at the School for Visually Impaired Children at Royal Dutch Physio, and her expertise lies in the field of the tactual development of blind children. And at the beginning of 2000, she and a project group started developing a tactile profile for children who have been blind from birth. This instrument is now used worldwide and was validated in 2005. Subsequently, she led many projects to stimulate the tactual development of blind children. In 2022, a new project was started, and this time to develop a tactual profile for adults with acquired deafblindness. This project will be highlighted during the conference. Okay, so welcome very much, your distinguished speakers. I'm very happy to have you here, and please start with your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Saskia, for the introduction, and thanks to the organization for giving us the opportunity to give this presentation with the title. Let's see if this works. Yeah. With the title, Can you observe the future in your hands? Yes. About the research project Tactile Profile for Acquired Deafblindness. There's a QR code which brings you to the text of this presentation, and there are also some braille prints. Maybe they were already distributed, but for the ones who need them, please let Annette know. She will distribute it to the tables. First, about the content of this presentation, I will give a short background about this project. Then Ans will take over. She will tell about the tactile profile she and her team developed. And finally, Femke will take over and she will describe the work that's currently being done and the future steps that will be taken. And in between there will be a tactile exercise. You got probably an envelope, and Ans will guide you through that exercise later. The background to this project. It is in particular the people with acquired deafblindness who are expected to depend on tactual capabilities. If people have both a visual impairment and an auditory impairment, they are probably more dependent on their tactual capabilities, on the tactual system. Therefore, it is expected that tactual capabilities are well mapped for this group, for example, during rehabilitation of deafblind people living with deafblindness. That appears not always the case. And actually we can say that usually during rehabilitation only little is known about the tactual capabilities. So the question remains whether tactile abilities are being used to the full extent. And therefore our aim is to develop a tactual profile for deafblind people. The target group are people with acquired deafblindness, and our focus is on the potential. It is about what is possible instead of what is not possible. And we hope that by means of the tactual profile for people living with deafblindness, we can use the tactual sense to the full potential. This project is an inclusive project. People with deafblindness take part in all parts of this project. So that means in the project group, in the development group, and in the group experts by experience. And also they took part in the project proposal. So it's a complete co-creation, and that reminds me of this morning's keynote from Mike Liplin. He said, he talked about the level of game excellence, and the fourth level was about the partner level. And I think this project is an example of the partner level. Take it over to Ans.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Oh, don't fall. Well, let's talk about touch. Roughly, we distinguish two systems of tactual functioning. We have the cutaneous touch, and the cutaneous touch is more to perceive small details. A lot of people think with cutaneous touch about Braille, reading Braille, but you do much more than only reading Braille with touch, also with the cutaneous touch. But another important system is the proprioceptive touch. And what do we mean with the proprioceptive touch? I come to this side, perhaps I see here what I'm talking about. It's more the deep pressure which we get, and from those sensations, which is transmitted by muscles, tendons and joints, we get information. For instance, to know on your table which cup is further away, you feel it with your arms, which one is close, and your muscles tell you which cup is further away, or for children, which tower is higher built. You feel it with your muscles. This has nothing to do with the cutaneous touch. This is the proprioceptive touch, and for blind children, it is very important, and not only for children, also for adults. And I imagine also for people with deafblindness, this is a very important system. There's another, okay, yeah, next slide. We also distinguish two functions in touch. When you talk about children, you see that the first years of their lives, the protective touch is very important. It's the touch to feel safe. You see it also when they grow up. It's also why parents keep their children away, close to them. Children who want to be feel safe because they feel pressure around them. That's the protective touch. After several years, you're going to discriminate between objects. You see it if you are going to explore, you're going to use your discriminative touch. It's in normal development, at the age of 4, it comes into a balance, the protective and discriminative touch. And when you give too much stimuli, you can give an overload to children. And this is always good to have in mind, because children don't want to touch anymore, because you give a bad experience. You give an overload on information. So if you start giving it, don't overdo it. And I can imagine that this could be the same for adults. If you start, for instance, reading Braille, and in your training you're giving too much stimuli, it's a bad experience, and people tend to draw back. It's also called tactile defensiveness, which you can see. So it's always good to observe whether these two functions of touch are in balance with each other. Okay, next slide, please. So in 2000, already a long time ago, we started with a project group in the Netherlands to make an observation, develop an observation instrument for charting tactual functioning. The target group were children in the age of 0 to 16 who were born blind or had no more than some residual vision. Tactual Profile focuses on the tactual requirements of everyday activities and school-related subjects. And we started with an analysis, a task analysis. I will, I think, can you hear me now? Because I have to explain this with my hands. We started with a task analysis. For instance, when blind children at school have to trace River Nile on a tactile map, and they can't do it well, because when you trace the River Nile, you cross borders, you cross cities, you cross all kinds of dots, you cross perhaps other rivers. From a task analyst, we thought, okay, then you have to know, we have to make it less complex. So in Tactual Profile, you start with the easiest way. First, you have to know, can the child trace a line which is straight? Can you still trace it when it's not straight anymore, but it's making a curve? You can also observe how much pressure is needed to trace that line which is curved. Also, can you still follow that line when another line is crossing it and when there are dots on it? So from this analysis, we made a very easy task, and it becomes more complex during the process. We go to the next slide. Perhaps some of you know it, but this is a Tactual Profile. You can see the special materials which come with Tactual Profile, and there are also folders with worksheets. And it's used at all the schools in the Netherlands, but it's a lot also in Europe and in other countries around the world. Yeah. And it's validated in 2005. We have 3 main domains in this instrument. which is the tactual sensory functioning, and the items in this main domain focus on the experiencing of sensory information. So it's about, for instance, touch sensitivity, the proprioception, which I talked about, or body awareness. Then we have a domain with items on tactual motor functioning, and those are items which focus on active touch and also on motor skills, fine motor skills, which are very important. And then we have a domain called tactual perceptual functioning, and in those domains there are items which focus more on the interpretation of the tactual information you gather during the task. I can't go into all the subcategories, we don't have time for this, but I'm here for several days, so you're always welcome to meet me. And then we have like a second instrument in it, and those are the influential factors on tactual perception. And this is an instrument next to the item selection. If a child was doing well or wrong on some items, you want to find a reason why you do it. And that's also important when you make a plan of action for a child. In this overview, you will find factors which influence the tactual functioning of the child. And you can look at it with your team and see what can we do or what can't we do. But we come to talk about this with Femke. We now go to a small workshop, and I ask you, for those who can see, to close your eyes. And I'm not sure how we're going to do it here, because I'm asking questions in between. But let's try it. So please close your eyes, and you have had an envelope when you came in. People who don't have an envelope with an object, please raise your hand, because then you get, everybody has an envelope. So close your eyes and open the envelope. We're going to explore this together. You'll find an object in your envelope. Let's all be quiet and take some time to explore this object. How does it feel? Do you like this material? Do you feel special aspects in the texture of the object? Is it smooth everywhere? Or do you feel some differences in the texture? Which part of the object do you like best? For me, it was the kind of slippery slide. Can you find it? Or better, funny protrusions. Do you feel small details like small dots? Is it possible for you to follow the outline of the object? Well, and difficult question. What do you think? Is the object symmetric? How do you think about... Oh, we're going to that later. What do you think about the weight of the object? Do you have any idea which touch strategies you use to find the answers to all the questions I ask you? Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. Otherwise, I would ask you to make a drawing of what you have in your hand. That would be fun. But instead, I ask you to make like a mental image in your head. And then you have it. Then you can open your eyes. Does it look as you expected? Why did I do this experiment? It's not about concept development, but I want you to explore what are good things about touch and what are difficult things about touch. Touch is a very good sense to feel different textures, to feel the weight of an object. I saw all the hands going like this when I asked, what do you think about the weight of the object? It's good to feel details. It's also possible to feel special features. But it's difficult, or it takes time, to build a mental image. It takes time and attention. Something you see in one glance visually takes a lot more time tactual, especially without reference of recognition and the lot of features on this object. Well, I think I'm going to give the mic and the floor to Femke now. Femke, okay. You want this?
Yes. Standing, just finding my spot, make sure I'm not falling off. Yes. This is what I like so much about this project, that we really collect all kind of different expertise with Ton, with Ans, and bringing all this expertise into the field of deafblindness. Because many years ago, when I first heard about the tactile profile, tactual profile Ans has been developing with her team, I already thought this would be so great for the deafblind field and acquired deafblindness, the group I'm part of myself. And finally, it is happening. And we did start this year with this project in the beginning of last year. And it's great fun and it's a great honor, but it's challenging. Acquired deafblindness, creating the tactile profile for this group. And at first we really want to make sure what is it we are focusing on. And as Ton said, we're focusing on the potential, which means the potential in compensating, but also in awareness, because awareness is this huge, necessary process, tool maybe, to really recognize your potential. Then we are not focusing only on sensory loss, because that has been done a lot in rehabilitation centers, coping with the loss of sight and hearing, but we really want to add to the potential. And that is why we are focusing on the sense of touch, which, as Anne said, is such a powerful sense. So let's get out the most of it. And we are really willing to use the resilience and the self-management of acquired deafblind people in the tactile profile for deafblind people. So we are now creating this observatory instrument, tactile profile for acquired deafblindness. And we will do that by really actively not only ask the acquired deafblind people to join in the project, as I am myself and many more, but also when the instrument is really working, an active interaction between the acquired deafblind person who will be observed by this instrument. He or she will be actively involved in the tactile profile mapping, the tactile profile charting. So the next slide. I'll take you very quickly to the tactile profile for deafblindness, but first I want to take you through the challenges. Most of the challenges you know, but just to mention them, because there is this beautiful observatory instrument, the tactile profile, which has been designed for children between birth and 16 years old. And now we're bringing it to adults, which is a completely different group. And then they are not congenital, but acquired deafblind. So it means it's another life stage that the impact of deafblindness takes place. And obviously, it's about dual loss, while the original tactile profile has been developed for only visual loss. So what's the impact of the dual loss, and does it have an impact, and should this affect the translation of this instrument into a tactile profile deafblindness? Should we think about that? What is the actual impact of that? And of course, there is a huge variety in acquired deafblind, kind of acquired deafblindness. Is this something to take into account when we develop the tactile profile for deafblindness? And if those challenges are not enough, final two, the original tactile profile has been developed for a school situation, for education. It was primarily created to enable children with visual loss, with severe visual loss or blindness, to take part in education. While here it's daily life focus, so it's a really broad focus. And finally, the network that is surrounding the person who is dealing with acquired deafblindness is extremely important in how the sense of touch can be used at best. So also the embedding in the network, it's different for acquired deafblindness than the original tactile profile group. The next slide, please. So, given all the challenges, we thought, okay, let's do it. And we have been working on it now for more than a year. And we have kind of set up the first idea of the new instrument. So what you're seeing here on this slide is how we at this very moment think the tactile profile for acquired deafblindness could look like when it's finished. It's just finished. I mean, 2 weeks ago I had the final discussion with the project team about this, and we will continue to develop this and do a pilot in early next year. So then absolutely it will be adjusted. So also to you the invitation, feel free to talk to us about it, ask difficult questions, add ideas, whatever. We really need and like the interaction. But the idea as it is right now, the tactile profile, when it will be created, it will start with a questionnaire based on the positive health model. So not the ICF model, but a positive health model. And this questionnaire, it can be sent out, it can be printed, we don't know yet, but it will be a questionnaire with yes and no questions. the person who will go through the tactile profile deafblindness will fill in the questions, and those are questions in many ways, like are you still cooking yourself? Do you have problems with that, yes or no? Well, this is wrong, by the way. But this has been one of the things, because, oh no, it's positive health. We should ask the positive question. Sorry. So all the time, this kind of discussions are going through, and we made a questionnaire with a lot, and the questionnaire is still not finished yet. But in the end, there will be this questionnaire. After the questionnaire, there will be an interview with the person, and this will be located in a rehabilitation center. And this interview will continue with the first information that has been gathered in the questionnaire, but it will be more in-depth. And this is not yes-no questions, obviously. This is much more open, and it's really to connect with the person, to really understand what is important for that very person to do this tactile profile, go through the process, and really get to know where to focus upon. What is it that this person maybe cannot do at this moment, but really wants to do, or maybe want to train better, or what is the motivation of this very person to join? And then at the same date, after the interview, after a break, of course, there will be a standardized test. The standardized test is, as Ans told, it will cover the 3 main areas of the tactile profile. So it's the same main areas as the original one. And it has it has not changed in focus, but it has changed in what kind of items we try to do the person to check all those 3 areas. Those are the 2 parts of the tactile profile deafblindness that is done at the rehabilitation center. After that, there will also be an observational test, which will be done at the client's home. The reason we wanted to make this distinction is that in the client's home, you can also see what kind of coping strategies somebody already has developed. So it might be that someone has, in one of the many aspects of the tactile profile, has certain weaknesses, or something hasn't been developed as strong as it could. But in real life, in his own situation, it might not be that problem. So this will give you the opportunity to observe what might be a problem really to focus upon and really to continue with, and what could be discussed, but maybe not something to work on in a rehabilitation setting. So after all this is done, there will be a conclusion and an advice. And again, this will be done in conversation with the client. And it will be a 2-way talk. It's really like, is this something you can work with? Is this something you feel at ease with? And the advice will obviously discuss possible appropriate interventions. So really choose to prioritize what is most important at that very moment, depending on what is important for that very client at that stage in life. And then after the appropriate interventions that might have taken place, you could decide to evaluate and even maybe do another shortened tactile profile test, just to see if something has improved. So this is a very, very basic outline we are thinking about. And what is very different here from the original tactile profile is that there is much more interaction with the client. And it's also much more focused on the different aspects in daily life that the client has to deal with acquired deafblindness. Now not going to the next slide, before we go to the next slide, this is the first aspect of tactile profile deafblindness. And as Ans explained to you, tactile profile has two different pillars, you could say, for the mapping out, the charting of the sense of touch. And what I just described to you is the one pillar. And the other pillar are the factors that are the influential factors. So there are things that, for example, if you touch this kind of dragon, we're all the time making fun of Ans taking so many dragons with her in her suitcase and everything. And she walks around with it for now 2 days. It's really funny. You didn't know, but we saw her with these 2 bags of dragons walking around. So now you know those are dragons. And you were touching them in this environment. Now, what could be influential factors? Because now we have made, for example, the first outline, the first chart of what you are good at. Can you sense the different textures? Can you sense if it's symmetric? Can you sense the rate a little bit? So Ans asks you all those questions. And all those questions are part of this profile we are now setting up, we are now filling in. And then you have how to give meaning to what you have observed. Because somebody might be perfectly able to do something, but not at that very moment. So here again, I want to ask you to join us and to think about and really share also actively what could be influential factors in this case that could influence the ability of people to, like this little dragon, sense it in all the different ways as Ans asked you. Can you think of things?
No, I only want to say we have 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah. So, only say you have 5 minutes, so you have 2 minutes to think of a lot of influential factors. So just shout out what could be influential factors that could, you know, have an impact on this observation.
Okay. Can you, I think what you mean, yeah, okay.
I probably wouldn't have got a dragon, but I certainly wouldn't have got a vertebrae if it had been presented the way up that it's supposed to be. So maybe some indication of what's up and what's down would be a good start.
Yeah, yes. And we did it on purpose, we did not, of course. But yeah, if you can help touch strategies by giving more clue and also finding the first reference point from where you're going to explore an object. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there more?
So I didn't know it would be a dragon, but if I had something that I could identify the shape of the thing, then I could maybe see that. But I don't know Pokemon from Adam, so if I knew a little bit more about Pokemon, I might have been able to identify it as a Pokemon. So for me, I didn't have that understanding of Pokemon, so I couldn't have gone there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and we understand. And again, it's on purpose, because we really wanted to give you something you needed to explore and not to think right away, oh, it's this. But it's true, part of the tactile profile is if you can recognize a small part and know right away what is the bigger thing it belongs to. So it's absolutely true, that is part of the tactile profile, and it's on purpose that you could not make sense out of it.
But it's true what you say. An influential factor is if you already have information about an object or you have more experience with the object, then it's easier to recognize. So this is one of personal factors. You can see it on the slide. We think about personal factors in health and functions, personal factors in activities and participation, and in external factors. Fortunately, we don't have time to discuss it all, but...
No. But again, if you want to continue talking to us, please do. So we're trying to find our seat again, so we leave it up to Ton.
Okay, I'll end very quickly. What we have seen, I'll give some background to the ambitions that we have, to the aim of this project. Ans gave a presentation about the currently existing tactile profile, not for deaf-blind people. And Femke described the developments we are currently undertaking for the adoption of that profile for deaf-blind people. And this is a project of 3 years. We got funding from the Royal Dutch Visio Foundation. So we hope to be able, for the next DBI conference, to present the final results. And one secret, this is just the tactile profile for the deaf-blind people. Hopefully we can connect this to a visual profile and an auditory profile into a multisensory profile. That's our ambition for the future. Okay, thank you for your attention.
I have only one extra remark, because I think it's nice to know that we work at Visio, but we also work together with Kentalis, and people from Kentalis also had the training on Tactual Profile, and they have it at their schools, and they are using it. So we are going to share experiences on taking an assessment with Tactual Profile with deaf-blind children. That was it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ans, Ton, and Femke, for your lovely presentation. We also have a small gift for you as a thank you. So I would like to give that to you, and please give them a big applause. And if you have questions, because we run out of time, and my job is to end at the time we need to end. So I can just say to you that if you have questions for the speakers, please go to them personally. And we can then continue now with the rest of the program.